right, welcome back. So to continue on, I'd like to take a few minutes, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, to tell you a little bit about the business of Grafana and our adventures in trying to make some money on this really awesome open source project over the last year. So Torkel gave you guys a really good update in terms of the status of the project and how far we've come with the recent releases, 2x, 3.0, now 4.0 as of yesterday. And I really wanted to give you an update in terms of what we've learned and how our monetization strategy is going and how we're completing the stack at Raintank. So this goes back to Monetorama earlier this year. But roughly speaking, as of late last year, our monetization plan at a high level looked something like this. Like any company, we wanted to build a really awesome team, mission number one, point number one. We wanted to accelerate Grafana, such an incredible opportunity. I find it a privilege to work with Torkel and be the company that's sort of responsible for bringing Grafana to so many new customers on commercial levels. So obviously we wanted to accelerate the Grafana project. We wanted to keep everything open source, which we were pretty opinionated about going into. Then things get a little bit vague in terms of our original plan. We had an idea that we wanted to sell hosted services. We wanted to sell support subscriptions. Weren't quite sure. The final point in our monetization plan was very clear. It was profit. But this was roughly sort of state of the art in terms of our thinking, in terms of how we were going to make money on Grafana at the end of last year. We've come quite a long way since last GrafanaCon on that. So let's talk a little about that. So the first one was an awesome team. And I just want to reiterate that point because I'm so privileged and honored to work with a group of the most talented people that I've ever worked with before. We're a small company, 10 people. We're going to be 12 actually next month. My background is web hosting. I used to run a hosting company here in New York. My co-founder Anthony used to run operations at Voxel, that hosting company. Matt Toback used to be CEO at Ubersmith, a spin out of that hosting company. We're all in, Matt and I are in New York along with Trent. We're spread out all over the world, though. Anthony's in Australia, our solitary person on the southern hemisphere. Torkel and Daniel and Carl are in Sweden, in Stockholm. We just opened an office there last month. And finally, Dieter is a global nomad. He's kind of traveling the world slowly. But like I said, the team is really, really incredible and has really come together over the last several months. So accelerate Grafana. I think Torkel's covered this really well. He talked about the 2x releases, the 3x releases, and now obviously here we are with version 4.0. We've added more developers. We have an office, like I said, in Stockholm and New York. We're really trying to put more momentum behind open source Grafana, and hopefully you guys are seeing that evidenced in the pace of the features and the releases. Torkel mentioned plugins, and I just want to kind of re-emphasize this point because they've been so key to the business. One of our biggest frustrations is having to say no so much to customers that want a particular feature or integration or capability added to Grafana. Plugins really give us a structure where we can do what customers want in a scalable manner without bogging down sort of the mainline code of Grafana. So plugins really allow us to say yes, move faster, and make our development more scalable. And like Torkel mentioned, we've created a tremendous amount of plugins, I think 30-something, kind of in the last 9 months. And we think we're going to go even faster in 2017. So Grafana's everywhere. There's many projects in the open source monitoring ecosystem. And we kind of occupy this visualization spot across a bunch of different projects and ecosystems. So all the way from the 800-pound gorilla of open source, Elastic, in Amsterdam. Obviously, you guys are familiar with Elasticsearch. We're starting to become a pretty popular visualization tool for Elasticsearch, although, of course, the default is still Kibana. But when you look at time series databases, Grafana's really achieved quite a lot of uptick. We're practically the de facto visualization tool for Graphite. Many OpenTSDB users use Grafana for visualization. Prometheus, who's also here today, we announced at last GrafanaCon, actually, that we are the de facto visualization tool for Prometheus. And we're working very closely with the Prometheus project. In fact, one of the Grafana contributors from Japan Mtanda is here today, if you're interested in Prometheus. And then lastly, Influx Data. InfluxDB, also super popular time series database. They're a partner of ours, or customer of ours, and we're committed to making the experience of Grafana and InfluxDB users really, really seamless and powerful. So the point is Grafana has really achieved kind of dominance on the visualization angle in the open source landscape. But we've learned some lessons along the way, kind of figuring out our monetization strategy. Some of them were a little bit eye-opening, in some ways disappointing. The first lesson was many of our largest users, most passionate users, who tell us all the time how much they love Grafana, how much they're getting value out of it, basically tell us, yeah, we're not interested in buying support. Love it, would never buy support, don't need it. Okay, fair enough. It's part of the model, but it was kind of an eye-opener for us. And many of our customers also wanted a complete stack for their monitoring, right? It's not just Grafana. And this is evidenced by what companies like Influx Data have been doing, what Elastic has been doing, really creating a complete stack, fully integrated offering that one company can support. We also basically figured out that monetization in open source is hard. It may be easier to end up famous than rich, basically. The landscape's littered with many, many open source projects that have gotten really popular but have failed to achieve sustainability, basically. And we, obviously really want to avoid that at RainTank. And then finally, even though we really made a decision in the beginning to stay completely open source and avoid open core, we really got it kind of drilled into our heads from a variety of people, from customers, from investors, from partners, that open core is our most obvious choice. But it's really not something we want to do, and we'll get into that. We also kind of realized over the last year, as far as the business goes, that we've had an unnatural evolution of sorts. It kind of made sense as we were going, all these different pieces, but now I'm almost embarrassed to have to explain where we ended up. So we're RainTank, which is a name that no one remembers because, RainTank, the company behind Grafana. If you want Grafana, you go to grafana.org. You get the software there. That's the main site. By the way, there's this other site that Torkel introduced called grafana.net, and that's where you get an account and your plugins. And if you want a support subscription, you better go to grafana.net, not grafana.org. And by the way, we have WorldPing, which is a whole separate thing. And like I said, this kind of made sense in the beginning. We felt really good about it. We're like, yeah, we're on the right track. But as we talked to customers and tried to explain this, it was more like, oh no, this is way too confusing. But we're not in bad company. How many of you guys remember all of these companies or know all of these companies? Relatively few, and that's not surprising. What about now? Know these companies? Right. So we basically took a page out of out of these companies' books and are announcing here. You heard it here first. We haven't completed the rebrand, but we are going to basically rebrand one site, everything. Instead of grafana.net, grafana.org, RainTank, it's all going to be under grafana.com. We're also going to change the name of our company from RainTank to Grafana Labs. We think that's just going to be much, much simpler. Honestly, I'm personally tired of hearing from people, oh yeah, you're the company behind Grafana. What are you called? Or what's the company that's doing the Grafana stuff called? It's really a lesson learned. So that's something that we're excited about doing. So anyway, our monetization plan has definitely evolved, gotten a little bit more sophisticated than the sort of question mark profit. We've realized that we want to be able to serve customers who are running Grafana both on-premise as well as in the cloud. So we really have two offerings that we have at Grafana Labs. The first is a hosted service. Obviously, our goal is to provide a fully managed turnkey stack. Hosted Grafana is the first piece of that stack. But in order to complete the stack, and the feedback that we've gotten from customers is we have to provide a hosted metrics backend. We also have to provide some sort of agent to run on the system. And those are two missing pieces in our stack currently. Now, if you're not interested in hosting your whole stack with us and running it in the cloud, we're still happy to support you with support subscriptions. Support subscriptions are something we've started to sell this year. We'll basically provide priority support, access to the core Grafana team, things like indemnification, health monitoring, and along with support subscriptions, we'll also do roadmap assurance and plugin subscriptions. Roadmap assurance is basically commitments to deliver particular functionality and features in Grafana by a particular date. We never make commitments in terms of our open source project, but for our commercial customers who are depending on certain features being delivered according to certain timelines, we will make those commitments. However, we do not do any development that doesn't make it into open source Grafana. So we don't have a separate branch, we don't have a separate enterprise version. It's all accelerating open source. So how's this going? This somewhat hashed out monetization plan. It's going relatively well. We started booking revenue in earnest in Q1 of this year. And we're going to end 2016 at over $1 million annualized run rate. That means if you take our December monthly revenue and multiply it by 12, our annualized run rate should be over $1 million. So we're default alive, which is really important to me and the team, meaning we're not dependent on our next round of funding to keep operating the company. We're remaining in control. We're planning on doing a Series A soon, but it's really important to us to be default alive going into it. Now, monetization is obviously important in 2017 for us, especially once we raise our Series A, but it is not our #1 priority. Adoption and basically creating awesome software will continue to be our priorities for 2017, along with a 100% open source strategy. So completing the stack is the other big sort of message that we got from our clients. They love Grafana, they're using Grafana, but Grafana is not the pain point. The pain point lies elsewhere with things like the back end. Scaling time series databases is hard. Supporting thousands of agents deployed on servers gets to be kind of a pain. And what our customers have told us is they want a complete stack, that they can have one vendor to support the whole thing, and highly integrated with Grafana and optimized for Grafana. So that brings us to two announcements and talks that are coming next. One is around a project called Snap, and one is a project that you're all probably familiar with called Graphite. And both of these projects will basically round out the stack at RainTank and provide a fully supported option for our customers. Now, this doesn't mean at all that we're turning our back on the rest of the ecosystem. We're still absolutely supporting, as first-class citizens, time series databases like InfluxDB, Prometheus, Elasticsearch. We're still absolutely interoperating with things like CollectD, Telegraph, Diamond. But when it comes to our opinionated version of the software that we really put our stamp on and we guarantee will work, will be tested to work well together to provide a great experience, this is our stack.